أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم عظم الله أجورنا وأجوركم. Let us take ourselves to the land of Karbala. Let us imagine what it would have been like for Aba Abdullah al-Husain and his holy family on those plains of Karbala. The desert heat, no water, the cries of al-Atash, and a small army standing up against kufr. Kull iman versus kull kufr. Imam al-Mahdi Akhir Zuma alayhi salam says in Ziyaratun Nahiya, فَلَأَنْدُبَنَّكَ صَبَاحًا وَمَسَاءً وَلَأَبْكِيَنَّ لَكَ بَذْلَ الدُّمُوعِ دَمًا حَسْرَةً عَلَيْكَ وَتَأَسُّفًا عَلَى مَا دَهَاكَ وَلَتَلَهُفًا. Imam says that I will lament for you, O my grandfather Aba Abdullah al-Husain. I will cry for you in the mornings, I will cry for you in the evenings, but instead of tears I will cry blood. Out of my anguish and my sorrow for whatever befell. These words alone from Ziyarat al-Nahiya, it gives us that understanding of the weight of the tragedy of Karbala. Imam of our time, take the condolences, our condolences over what happened on that fateful day. Imam Ali alayhi salam and Imam Hassan alayhi salam, both of them tried to hide their mortal wounds. They tried to underemphasize the amount of pain that they were going through during the last moments of their lives in order to try and protect Bibi Zainab and to protect the women folk of Ahlul Bayt. But in Karbala there is no such protection. O Hajar, who could not bear to see the scar on your son's neck, come to Karbala and see what happens to Aba Abdullah al-Husayn and what happens to his sons. O Ibrahim alayhi salam, the one who could not bear to see the throat of his son cut, come to Karbala and look how Imam Husain alayhi salam sees his children cut to pieces. And there are no blindfolds in Karbala. O Ya'qub, the one whose losing one son was enough to cost you your eyesight, come to Karbala, where the tears never cease. Imam Husain alayhi salam, he says before the battle, Allahumma anta thiqati fi kulli karbin wa shidda. Ya Allah, you are my trust in every tragedy. You are my hope in every difficulty. After a long night of ibadah and a night of farewells, the day of Ashura, it begins. The most difficult day for Ahlul Bayt. Their darkest difficulties, the most profound suffering, and they never forget Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Imam is the last of the Banjad. He is the last of Ahlul Kisa. He is the last of those who stood at the Mubarak. He is the Imam of his time. He goes out towards the enemy and he says, listen to me and pay attention for what I have to tell you. For it is your right on me as your Imam that I admonish. Listen to what I have to say and obey it because it is for your benefit. And if you choose not to listen to me, then think about what you are about to do. You're about to commit an action that will earn the curse of Allah. O people, remember, I am the grandson of Rasulullah al-Aman. This is Aba Abdullah al-Husayn, the grandson of Rasulullah. He comes ready to sacrifice his family, but he is still performing his duty as Imam. The women folk of Ali Muhammad, they hear the crying in the camps. They hear this speech by Imam Husain alayhi salam and they begin crying loudly. Imam Husain sends Bibi Zainab. And he says, please keep them calm for now, because the time for their crying will come only after my martyrdom. Imam Husain says, don't you know I am the grandson of Rasulullah? I am the son of Ali, the first believer, the cousin of Rasulullah. Don't you know that Hamza, the leader of the martyrs, is the uncle of my father? Don't you know that Ja'far al-Tayyar, with whom Allah has blessed wings, who flies in paradise, he is my uncle? Have you not heard the words of Rasulullah about me and my brother when he said, Huma sayyiday shababi ahl al-jannah? They are the masters of the youth of paradise. And if you don't believe me, and by Allah I have never told a lie, then ask those amongst you. There are people who have still witnessed those words. Ask Jabir bin Abdullah al-Ansari. Ask Zayd bin Arqam. Ask Anas ibn Malik. Ask Abu Sa'id al-Khudri. These people will bear witness to these words of the Holy Prophet. But if that is not enough, if it is not sufficient for you that I have this position, at least recognize that I am the last of the grandsons of Rasulullah in this world from the east to the west. If you know all of this, why then do you come to fight me? Instead of responding to these arguments, they simply said, give us your allegiance or give us your head. Imam Husain alayhi salam says, La wallah, la uqirru biyadi iqrar al-dhalil wa la ufirru firar al-abid. I will never pay the allegiance like a weak person, nor will I run away like a slave. Imam Husain goes out again, he puts a Quran on top of his head. He says, this is the Quran between us. The book of Allah is a witness. Don't you recognize what you are doing? You called me here to support us, and now you turn against me. They still gave him no choice. He says, ألا إن الدعي ابن الدعي قد ركزنا بين اثنتين بين السلة والذلة وهيهات من الذلة. The sinner, the son of the sinner, has given me two options: to live in humiliation or to die in battle. And Allah is my witness, I will never live in humiliation. Imam Husain alayhi salam, he goes back. He sends one final message. They won't listen to the words of Abu Abdullah al-Husayn. Maybe they will listen when they see the image of Rasulullah. He sends his son Ali al-Akbar, who resembled the Prophet most in his looks, most in his mannerisms. He says, go and recite the adhan. If they see with their own eyes the embodiment of Rasulullah saying, Ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah, maybe they will recognize. What must you have felt, O Abu Abdullah, when you see the image of Rasulullah reciting Ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah, and it falls upon deaf ears? They are blind, they are misguided, they refuse to accept the truth. He calls out, Hayya ala khair al-amal. And now the khair al-amal is the protection of the deen, the establishment of Imam Husain alayhi salam's message. But he hears the adhan of his son Ali al-Akbar for the last time. And now he will prove to the world that Rasulullah, when he said Husayno minni wa ana min al-Husayn, he referred both literally and figuratively. That soon they will kill the man who embodies the teachings of Rasulullah, but also the flesh and blood of the Holy Prophet as well. Imam Husain alayhi salam, he starts to think about those whom he is leaving behind. He digs a trench behind his tents, and in that trench he sets fire in order to prevent the people from attacking the women folk from behind. Constantly he's thinking, how long can he delay the attack on the women? Shimr ibn al-Jawshan sees this and shouts out, O Husain, do you run to the fire of hell before your day of judgment? Al-la'in la'natullah. Imam says, you have lied, indeed I will meet my grandfather in Jannah. But O Imam, this tactic will save your women folk and your children only for a few hours. For come back after your passing. Come back to the tents and see that they will loot the camps of Ali Muhammad. They will burn the tents from where the religion itself originated. They will take the veils from the household that brought the hijab in the first place. Umar ibn Sa'ad, he takes his arrow and he takes his bow. He fires the first arrow at Abu Abdullah al-Husayn's army. He says, bear witness that I am the first to fire. I am the one who started this battle. Then they fire more and more arrows at the camp of Imam Husayn. He says, these are messengers from the enemies of Allah. I now give you permission to fight and face death from which we cannot return. And this is no ordinary battle. The Imam's army is not only outnumbered, not only are they so small against so many thousand, they are thirsty. They have been baking under the desert sun. We fast in Ramadan for one day, how thirsty we are at the end. We do faqah today and how much we wish to drink water. Assalamu ala shifahi dhabilat. Peace be upon those parched lips in Karbala. What of Imam Husain and his family? Amongst the cries of Al-Atash, that the children, when they ask for water, Imam cannot answer. As his family and friends are dying, he cannot fulfill their last wishes. The battle starts, the enemy charges and cuts down almost half the army of Abu Abdullah al-Husayn, but they manage to keep them back. And one after the other, these companions of the Imam, they begin to die. Hazrat Hur ibn Yazid al-Riyahi, the only one who the words of Abu Abdullah managed to penetrate into his soul, he charges towards Imam Husayn, as if he is going to attack him. But when he arrives, he comes down from his horse, he begs for forgiveness. And he turns around to the people of the enemy side. He says, look around you, use your eyes. Can you not recognize that we have made the children of Ali Muhammad thirsty, whilst our animals and our horses are free to bathe in the Furat? What will you say to his grandfather Rasulullah on the day of judgment? Al-Abis bin Shakiri, he is one of the companions who is madly in love with Imam Husain from a warrior tribe. He fights the enemy until they are too scared to approach him. He comes forward one way, they run away. He comes from another angle, they flee. So he says, come and fight me, give me martyrdom in the way of Abu Abdullah al-Husayn. They refuse. He takes off his armor. He says, look, I am defenseless, come and attack me. They say, oh Abbas, you have gone insane. He says, absolutely I am insane in the love for my master Abu Abdullah. Muslim ibn Awsajah, when he is struck down and he falls on the sands of Karbala and he bleeds into that holy land, Habib ibn Madahir asks what is his wasiyah. He points to Abu Abdullah al-Husayn and he says, my only will is that you spend your life dying to protect this man. Nafi bin Hilal, he fights, he kills a dozen men until his arms are broken and he is captured. He is taken towards Umar ibn Sa'ad and he wonders, what is it, O Nafi, that makes you fight like this? He says, you would never understand, but bear witness that if you had not broken both my arms, you never would have captured me alive. Zuhair ibn al-Qayn fought particularly ferociously on that day, killing a number of the opposition. But one after the other, the companions of Abu Abdullah al-Husayn, they are dying. They fall to the ground, never to move again, with a display of bravery never seen on the battlefield, until Abu Thamama Sa'adi says, "O Imam, it is time for Salah." Imam Husain alayhi salam in the midst of battle looks up to the sky. He says, indeed, you have remembered Salah in this world. May Allah make you amongst those who establish Salah in the Akhirah. There is a truce with the opposition. They promise not to fire, not to fight. Imam Husain alayhi salam then leads the Salah with a companion or two in front. And on the plains of Karbala, we see the world's strangest Salah. For they are surrounded by rivers of blood. The floor is littered with the corpses of their loved ones. Their bodies have been cut open. The people who are praying have arrows in them. They have the wounds of the swords and from the spears. And when Imam leads the Salah, immediately they start firing arrows and spears at Abu Abdullah al-Husayn. His companions stand in front of him and they absorb the blows until after they finish the Salah, it is as if they turn round to Abu Abdullah and say, "Oh Imam, do we now have permission to die? Have we now served you?" Imam of course agrees. But this is the sunnah of the Shia of Ali Muhammad to establish the Salah. How can we call ourselves followers of Imam Husayn when he establishes the Salah in Karbala and we don't in our lives? There is no more Habib. There is no more Muslim, there is no Zuhair, no Burayr, no Abis, no Hur. All of his companions fall one after the other until the Imam looks around and he has no companions. Imam is tired, Imam is thirsty, Imam is needy. This small army of Imam Husayn is getting smaller and smaller. The son of Fatima al-Zahra is becoming tired. but he still has his family members around to protect him. He still has people he can confide in, but again, one after the other, they are too going to be cut down. On and Muhammad fight together. Umar ibn Sa'ad says these two youth, they fight like I used to see Ali ibn Abi Talib fight. They could only be killed once they were separated. But after they were martyred, Bibi Zainab, she did not have time to cry for them, for there were so many tragedies after tragedies. How could you cry for one before the next would be martyred? For soon afterwards we say, Assalamu alayka wa ala dhurriyyatika an-nasirin. Peace be upon you and your children who aided you. Hazrat Qasim comes out to fight. He wears the turban of his father, the armor of his father, the sword of his father. It looks like an embodiment of Imam Hassan alayhi salam on the battlefield. He goes forward to fight. Imam Husain alayhi salam tries to convince him not to go. He cannot succeed until Hazrat Qasim fights. And Hamid ibn Muslim narrates that I realized that he bent down to fix the strap on his shoe because he was too young to fight in battle. He was too naive. Until an enemy of Allah came from behind and struck him on the head and split open his skull. For Imam Husain, it must have been seeing his brother die for a second time. Assalamu alayka wa ala al-malaikati al-mudaji'een. Peace be upon you and the accompanying angels. Imam has sent out other sons to die. He has given permission to other mothers to send out their children. But now his own son Ali al-Akbar comes forward. The face upon whom anyone who wanted to remember Rasulullah would look. The one who recited the adhan at the beginning of battle. And he comes to his father. He says, give me permission to fight. Imam Husain alayhi salam, he does not resist. Anyone else's sacrifice, he tried to convince them not to go. But when it comes to his sacrifice, he accepts it straight away. But what must he have been feeling? For Abu Abdullah al-Husayn is a father nonetheless. We may have children or nephews or cousins or people who are young. How can we think about sending them out to die? Hazrat Ali al-Akbar charges out, Ana Ali ibn al-Husayn ibn Ali, Nahnu Baytullah wa awlad al-Nabi. I am Ali, son of Husayn, son of Ali. I will come and fight you bravely. Hazrat Ali al-Akbar, he fights until he is stabbed with a spear and he is struck on top of his head, and the blood from his wounds, they fall into the eyes of the horse, so that the horse drags him towards the camp of Umar ibn Sa'ad rather than Imam Husayn. All the while he is hacked away by the swords of the enemies of Allah, crying out, Abi ya Abu Abdullah, alaykum minni as-salam. Imam Husain alayhi salam rushes forward. He tries to get to Hazrat Ali al-Akbar, but he stumbles this way and that. They say, Ya Abu Abdullah, why are you stumbling? Why don't you know where you are going? He says, because after the loss of Ali al-Akbar, these eyes, they no longer see. Oh Imam Ali, come to Karbala. See the battle of your son Imam Husayn. See when he had to pull the spear out of the chest of his young son Ali al-Akbar. Assalamu alayka wa ala abnaika al-mustashhadeen. Peace be upon you, Ya Abu Abdullah, and on your martyred sons. But just like Ali, who was the shadow of Rasulullah, Abbas was the shadow of Imam Husayn. They would not be separated. But Imam Husayn did not want to let him go. For, oh Abbas, you are my standard bearer. You are the hope of the women and the children. You are the final protector. You are the leader of my army. But oh Abu Abdullah, what army? What army now remains for Hazrat Abbas to lead? The cries of Al-Atash, they continue. Hazrat Abbas says, at least let me go and get some water. At least let me try and satisfy one thing on this day. Imam Husayn alayhi salam gives him permission. Hazrat Abbas takes the mashk, the container of water, and he charges towards the river. but the enemies of Allah, they hide and they use devious means. When he comes back with the mash, they strike him on the right arm, they strike him on the left, they shoot him full of arrows, an arrow in his eye, and they struck him with a club on his head, splitting his skull until Hazrat Abbas fell to the ground, and an arrow even pierced that mushk of the water. Assalamu ala dima'i sa'ilat, peace be upon the gushing blood. Assalamu ala al-a'da'i al-muqatta'at, peace be upon the severed, the dismembered limbs. Whenever any of the companions fell from their horses, they had their hands to break their fall. But Hazrat Abbas, he falls onto his face, onto that arrow which was in his eye. As the standard falls, as the alam of Imam Husain alayhi salam falls to the ground, so too do the hopes of Ali Muhammad, so too do the hopes of the children who were hoping for water. Imam, he has no sight, and now his back is broken. One death in a family is a qiyamah, but what of Abu Abdullah al-Husayn in Karbala? He loses all his friends, he loses all his family. He says to Bibi Zainab, "Oh, Bibi Zainab, it is time for me to go." She says, "Ya Aba Abdullah, astaslabta lil mawt." Oh, my brother Aba Abdullah, have you given in to death? Have you given up on this world? Imam says, وَكَيْفَ لَا يَسْتَسْلِبُ إِلَى الْمَوْتِ مَنْ لَا نَاصِرَ لَهُ وَلَا مُعِينٌ. Oh, my sister Zainab, how can I not give up to death when in this world I have no helpers anymore? I have no more companions, I have no more family. Imam Husain alayhi salam cries out, "Ya Habib, Ya Zuhair, Ya Burair, ma li ad'ukum fala tujibu." Oh Habib, oh Zuhair, oh Burair, your master is calling you. Why don't you respond to the call of your Imam? But how can you respond when your heads have been severed from your bodies? He is trying to bid his final farewell when Bibi Sakina comes up to him and says, "Oh father, please issue me your condolences now." Imam Husain alayhi salam asks, "What do you mean?" She says, "When our uncle Muslim bin Aqil, when he died, you called his daughter Hamida forward. You put your hand on her head and you gave her condolences. You told her it was going to be okay. After your martyrdom, there's no one left to do that for me. Oh Father, please, please console me before you go." Imam Husain alayhi salam says, "I cannot bear to see your tears, Ya Sukaina." Imam, come back to Karbala, see what they did to her, that every time she would cry these tears that you saw, rather than compassion, she would be whipped by Shimr ibn al-Jawshan. Imam Husain alayhi salam is mounting his horse when Bibi Zainab stops him, saying, "Mehlan, Mehlan, ya ibn al-Zahra." Stop, oh the son of Zahra. Imam Husain alayhi salam turns around. He says, "You have pierced my heart by taking the name of my mother Fatima to Zahra." He says, "What has happened?" She says that unbutton your shirt. She kisses him on the neck and she kisses him on the chest. And then she turns to Medina. She says, "Oh Fatima to Zahra, oh mother, I have fulfilled that mission that you gave me." Imam Hussein is crying. He says, "Why is it that you have done this?" She says that during the last illness of our mother, when she was about to leave this world, she said, "Oh Zainab, there will come a day that you will be alone with your brother Abu Abdullah al-Husayn in the land of Karbala. On a day that he will sacrifice his soul, he will sacrifice his body. On that day I want you to kiss him on the neck and kiss him on the chest. Kiss him on the chest because that is where the horses will trample. And kiss him on the neck because that is where the blade of Shimr ibn al-Jawshan will come." Imam Husain alayhi salam, he weeps. He turns to Medina. He says, "Salam upon you, O mother. I will be joining you soon. Surely I have missed you for so many years." But as Imam is trying to leave, Bibi Zainab comes to him and says, "Look, all is over, all is lost. But perhaps we can find some solace for your young son Asghar. that however evil these enemies of Allah are, at least they will not be able to strike a young child, a 6-month-old baby, an infant. يا أيها القوم يا آل أبي سفيان إن كان للكبار ذنب فما ذنب هذا الرضيع. O the people of Abu Sufyan, if we have committed some sin for which you are killing us, if we have done something wrong for which you are punishing us, what is the fault of this 6-month-old baby? But instead of giving water, Harmala, he fires a 3-headed arrow which strikes the neck of Ali al-Asghar, that cuts the neck of this infant from one side across to the other while he sits in the hands of his father, Imam Husain alayhi salam. The arrow pierces through and enters the chest of Imam Husain alayhi salam. The final corpse that he has to take back is the smallest, but it is the heaviest. And it is the corpse that he tries to bury in Karbala. He takes the blood of Ali al-Asghar, he throws it up to the heavens, he says, Ya Allah, if this pleases you, then take all that you want. He says to the camp, he takes the baby back. Bibi Zainab says, did you manage to feed him? Did you manage to get him water? And he said to Bibi Zainab, oh Zainab, they killed even my baby Asghar. Imam says his final farewell. He sees the faces that are going pale. They have lost everybody. They have lost everyone. Anyone who goes out to the battlefield, they don't return. And now they recognize that the final protector of the Chadras of Ali Muhammad, the final protector of the children, is about to leave. Anyone who died so far, they had some peace, they had some knowledge that, okay, I am leaving now, but at least Abbas is left, or at least Akbar is left, or at least Qasim is left. At least there will be someone who will protect the women and children after I die. But Aba Abdullah al-Husayn, my condolences upon you, for you knew that the moment that you died, the moment you were killed, that your children and your women would no longer be protected. This is the state of the final one of the Banjata. He is going to die protecting this message. Oh Lady Fatima, come to Karbala. See the fate of your thirsty son, lifting the corpses for the whole day. Now he goes out to fight alone. Imam Husain alayhi salam, he goes out to fight. And at this point he has lost everyone. He has nobody left to fight alongside him. Hamid ibn Muslim, he says, I have never seen a man who witnessed the death of the martyrdom of both his companions and his family, and yet continues to fight so bravely that every time he charges, the enemy flees like a wolf scares away the sheep. Whenever he attacks one group, they run away from him because they are scared to engage someone with the look in the eye of Abu Abdullah al-Husayn. Oh Ali, come to Karbala, see the fight of your thirsty son. You fought many battles in your life, but none like the battle of Karbala. Surrounded by the corpses of his loved ones and his friends, 3 days thirsty. Assalamu ala shifah dhabilat. He returns to the tents calling for Zainab, saying his final farewells. But what must you have been thinking, O Aba Abdullah al-Husayn, when you say your farewells? For now there will be no protector left. He says, take care of my children, take care of my family, O Zainab. This is how desperate the grandson of Rasulullah, the master of the youth of paradise, has become, that he has to ask his sister to be the warrior. His sister has to be the fighter that protects them. Al min nasirin yansurna. Is there anyone amongst you to help us? Al min nasirin yansurna. That cry that pierced the space and time, the cry that reaches us today, it reached the ears of the fourth Imam, Imam Zainul Abidin alayhi salam. He is so ill on this day. They didn't know whether he would survive. But at this point he is awake. At this point he says, oh my auntie, bring me a sword and bring me a stick. Why a sword and a stick? He says, because I need a sword to defend my father who is all alone. And I need a stick to support so that I can bear to stand up and die for my father, Abu Abdullah al-Husayn. Even the patience of Imam Zainul Abidin was not enough on that day. Imam Husayn says, Ya Zainab, irji'ihi ila al-khiyam. Oh Zainab, take him back to the tents. Now is not the time for his martyrdom.
But O Sajjad, hold on to your patience, for this is only the beginning of your test. Where the test of your father ends, your test is going to begin. For you will see the killing of the children. You will see the heads being put on the spears. You will see the tents burning as the children run between them looking for shelter. You will see the snatching of the veils of Ali Muhammad. You will see the whipping of the women and the children. You will see as the people of Sham celebrate and toss stones at you and your family. You will see the dungeons of Sham. You will see the court of Yazid, and you will have to dig a small grave for your young sister Ruqayya with the chains that bind your arms. It is but a little time, O Imam as-Sajjad, till your test begins. Imam Husain alayhi salam, he continues to fight like a lion, a man possessed, following in the footsteps of Ali ibn Abi Talib, cutting the army to pieces. But over time, he is sustaining more and more wounds. He is getting more and more hurt and injured. Imam as-Sadiq alayhi salam tells us that he had more than 70 wounds on that day of Ashura, from the arrows and from the spears and from the swords and from the stones. As-salamu ala al-mughassali bidam al-jirah. Peace be upon the one who was bathed in his own blood. Until the cry is heard, يا أيتها النفس المطمئنة ارجعي إلى ربك راضية مرضية فادخلي في عبادي وادخلي جنتي. These verses of Surah Al-Fajr, that that nafs which has total satisfaction with his Lord, and the one whose Lord has total satisfaction with him, it is time that you return to your Allah. Imam Husain alayhi salam is dying. A stone is thrown at his face, at his holy face, splitting the forehead. Blood starts to pour onto his face, into his eyes. He takes the blood from this wound and he wipes it into his beard. He says, this is how I will face Allah on the day of judgment. It is in this state, Ya Rasulullah, that I will complain to you about what your ummah did to me. As-salamu ala shayb al-khadib. Peace be upon that white beard that was dyed red with blood. As-salamu ala al-mujarra'i bi ka'sat al-rimah. Peace be upon the one who tasted the spears raining down over his body. Harmalah fires another arrow at the Imam. It pierces his chest. He tries to take it out from the front. He can't. He has to take it out from the other side. That's how deeply it has pierced. And at this point, as we can tell from the wounds, Imam Husain alayhi salam does not have much time left in this world. His imamate is about to expire. Imam Husain alayhi salam, he is approached by enemy of Allah after enemy of Allah. Each of them comes to take the glory of killing Sayyidi Shababi Ahl al-Jannah. But one after the other they turn away. One of them said that I never saw a man who was covered in so much blood, yet his face continues to shine with that great nur. They would tremble and throw their swords apart. Bibi Zainab cried out, O Umar ibn Sa'ad, you're going to stand while the grandson of Rasulullah is killed? Umar ibn Sa'ad, he turns his face away with a tear in his eye, but he says, finish off this Imam. They began to attack the tents of Abu Abdullah al-Husayn while he was still alive. He cries out, Ya Shi'ata ala Abi Sufyan, in lam takunu muslimin fakunu a'raban kama taz'amun. O followers of Abu Sufyan, if you are not Muslims after you have killed the family of Rasulullah, at least be Arabs like you claim. At least don't attack my women and my children while I am alive to see it. They actually listen to this one claim from the Imam and they come to the Imam to finish him off. Shimr ibn al-Diljoshan comes forward to Abu Abdullah al-Husayn. He kicks the holy body of Abu Abdullah al-Husayn. Imam Husayn is about to be killed when Abdullah, the son of Imam Hassan alayhi salam, a young boy, runs out from the tents and throws himself upon his uncle. He says, leave my uncle alone, stop hurting my dear uncle. Not an ounce of mercy in the heart of Shimr ibn al-Diljoshan. He struck at Abdullah while he was on the chest of his dying uncle. He looks at his hand as it hangs off from his arm. He says, "Oh my uncle, look what they have done to me. They have severed my hand." Imam Husain, what can he do now? What can he do in consolation for this young child? All he can say is, "Oh Abdullah, complain about it to your grandfather Rasulullah and to your father Imam Hassan on the day of judgment." Harmala fires an arrow that pierces the chest of Abdullah, and he falls and dies upon the dying Abu Abdullah al-Husayn. At least Imam couldn't even leave this world in peace. But O martyrs of Karbala, whenever any of you were going to die, you had Abu Abdullah al-Husayn by your side. You had his companions with you. You had his family members with you. There was at least some peace, some solace when you were about to leave. But when Abu Abdullah al-Husayn is about to die, it is Shimr ibn al-Diljoshan that comes forward. He comes to the chest of Abu Abdullah al-Husayn. He kicks the holy body of Abu Abdullah al-Husayn. Bibi Zainab, according to some narrations, comes out to try and stop him, and Shimr strikes Bibi Zainab. He then turns Imam Husain alayhi salam around. He then takes out his blunted dagger and he goes towards that neck which Rasulullah used to kiss, belonging to the body of the Imam, this proof of Allah on this world, the last of Ahlul Kisa. He takes the blade and he begins to hack away at the holy throat of Abu Abdullah al-Husayn, strike after strike, blow after blow, until he eventually separates the head of Abu Abdullah al-Husayn from his holy body. لعنة الله على قوم الظالمين.